Hi, my name is Thea. I'm here on behalf of Miguel and Weston to present the first half of the lecture for Tabbr. So if you guys can see my screen right now, we are at the main dashboard of Tabbr. So the first thing you need to do when you enter Tabbr is to sign in. And once you sign in, as you can see here, there is a drawer. And these are the tournaments that you handle as an administrator and as a participant. So first, we'll be running through the British parliamentary format of Tabbr, and then afterwards, we'll be doing the Asian parliamentary. So this is just a really quick introduction to familiarize other people with the format of Tabbr, especially for those who have not used it before, or for those who might not have seen the more recent updates that the Tabbr devs have done to the software in most recent times. So if you guys are a participant and you guys have already signed in, for any tournament that you join that will use Tabbr, the first thing you need to make sure of is you send your Tabbr email to the tournament registration itself. So this is done to ensure that your email is linked to the tab page itself, and you guys will be able to access submission and ballots under a. So for example, let's use the UST debate cross-training tournament page to illustrate how Tabbr works. So, as a participant, there was a recent feature launched around the release of the Diliman Debate Open 2020. This is called the Participant Dashboard. So, if this is your first time using Tabbr or using Tabbr BP, what you guys can do is you can toggle the dashboard guide on. So why is this important? So if you are new to Tabbr, or if you're on mobile, or if you're having issues navigating the UI of Tabbr, what you can do is toggle the dashboard guide on so that you guys can see instructions and you guys can see step-by-step processes and the flow of how to use Tabbr. So this is the dashboard. So you can navigate the tab, most of the tabs here. So there's a little note from the Tabbr devs. So here's your information. This is very important because you need to contact your tab team or the tab administrator if your name or your team name or your institution has any discrepancies. This is important because in draws or in allocations, if your institution or if your team name isn't properly written, it could cause delays in the allocation and in the draw. So since this is just a cross-training, I'm not part of any break categories I'm not part of any break categories or speaker awards. But in real tournaments, you will be able to see here if you are eligible for open, which means that everybody is automatically eligible to break in that category. If you're eligible for novice, if you're eligible for high school, EFL or ESL, depending on what tournament and what break categories they have. So if you see any discrepancies, if you're actually tagged as a novice but you're not a novice, or the opposite, if you are a novice or a high school student and it's not indicated here in the participant dashboard of the tournament, you will need to contact a tab administrator immediately. So that also goes for speaker awards. So the next thing, and the next part of the participants dashboard is what we call the conflicts tab. So here in the conflicts card, what you can do is you can select the My Conflicts part of the page, and it will lead you to It will lead you to the conflicts page where you can declare conflicts against adjudicators or institutions that you have previously been part of, right? But please do note that if you are a debater, you are only allowed to conflict adjudicators. So these are the list of adjudicators you guys can conflict yourselves against. If you are an adjudicator, you are able to conflict yourselves against a debater, against a team, against an institution. This means that as an adjudicator, you have to exercise the foresight to check which institution you were previously a part of or affiliated with, or if you trained with them, or if you have obligations to that institution and you have to mark it accordingly. Otherwise, you can also see which adjudicators conflicted you, which adjudicators conflicted you because of your team, or which adjudicators are conflicted with you because of your institution. So here I am listed as a composite, my team name is Thea and my institution is composite. So therefore, judges also under the composite institution are also automatically conflicted against me. So this is part of the Tabbr algorithm to make sure that we minimize any conflict or delay in the draw allocation. So for example, Joseph and Bernard are conflicted against. So this is the conflicts page. So going back, after you've filled out your conflicts, this should be done before the start of the tournament. What you guys can do is you guys can check each round and each round's progress. So what you can do is press this arrow here to release the rest of the drawer, right? So since the rounds for this tournament has already been done, you can only see the results and the matchup. But if this tournament was still live, meaning that the tournament is still ongoing, you would be able to see an additional selection, which reads allocation and ballot. So in allocation and ballot, what you can do is you can open this type of card view, and you will be able to see who you are going up against, who are your judges, and you can also submit feedback. So how do you submit feedback? You submit feedback by selecting your name and inputting your score and inputting feedback. It's also important to note that you have to indicate whether you agree or you disagree with the chair's decision. This helps the adjudication core and the tab team to assess whether or not this judge should be allocated in your room or whether this judge should remain allocated as a chair in the succeeding rounds. So this is just an example. So that goes the same for all and the rest of the tournament. So if you return to participant dashboard, you will also see the same options under the rounds. If you're a breaking judge or if you're a breaking team, and the break rounds are live, you will be also able to see the break categories and the break rounds live here in the dashboard. But since this is only a cross-training, it only means that you're only able to see the first preliminary rounds. So that's it for the British parliamentary side of Tabbr. So for the next part of Tabbr, we're going to be dealing with Tabbr AP. So I previously competed in a tournament, North Luzon Online Debates, as a debater. And I'm here to briefly run you through the system of Tabbr AP because Tabbr AP, we're hoping that AP season will start soon and you guys will need to refamiliarize yourselves because Tabbr AP is built differently from Tabbr BP right now. So this is the dashboard of Tabbr AP's tournament, North Luzon Online Debates. In order for you to access other parts of the tab, if you are a team, you will be given a password. So I've already signed in. For this tournament, my name was UPD N1 Kanami Peace. And once you are signed in, that means you are eligible to declare your conflicts and submit ballots and check results of each round. So in order for you to do that, you go to the bottom right of your screen where you will see what they call a gavel. So it's a gray bubble with two people as an icon. And you press that. And you will be able to see the actions that you are able to do as an individual or as a team. So this also works for judges. So here you can declare your conflicts. So once you press your conflicts, you can choose adjudicate your conflicts. So it's conflict system is still the same for BP. If you are a debater, you are only allowed to conflict judges because you can't conflict debaters because you are a debater as well. So these are the list of judges and you can conflict them. And you will also be able to see the list of judges that are currently conflicted from you, whether by your design or their design. So next, we can go to round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4. So as you can see, there is already a check, meaning that this round and your deliverable for this round has been done. So in Tabbr AP, you need to submit two things. First, you need to submit your speaker position. Oh, you also need to submit a veto, and you need to submit your ballot. So for the veto process, it's fairly simple. You go to round 1, and if this tournament was live, you will be able to open the tray for round 1 and open up the veto system. So we can go to motions. So Tabbr AP has a built-in veto system. So you give one to the motion you want to do the most, 3 for the motion you will veto, and 2 for the I can do whatever about this motion. So for example, you give 1, 2, 3. So Tabbr automatically cancels out any motion that has a 3. What if you need to do a coin toss? If you need to do a coin toss, you will not need to do the coin toss by yourself, or you will not need a judge to do it for you. Tabbr has an automatic randomizer or a coin toss feature inputted. So if Tabbr sees that you are the veto for 2 motions is the same, so Tabbr will randomly choose between the motions to select which one you guys will be debating. So that's how you select the veto for your rounds. Afterwards, you guys will need to input your speaker positions, going back to the gavel and selecting the round in which you will submit speaker positions and your feedback for the round. After you have fulfilled all of these, there will be a check beside your round to signify you guys don't need to do anything else. Now, if you would like to see analytics for the motions, or analytics how teams performed within the motion, or the break calculator, this is also available in Tabbr AP. It's not available in British Parliamentary because it's a little more varied and distribution isn't always as consistent. So to view analytics, you can tap a motion. So for example, let's take round 1. And you can see here how many teams won. So 3 teams took this. So 3 teams took this and used this in the round, resulting in 2 opposition wins and 1 gov win. So you can also see how many teams lost, how many won, and you can look at the percentage of how speakers in the round were graded accordingly. So if you're a nerd and you like statistics, you guys can also look at this more in depth. But this is available specifically only for Asian Parliamentary. So the tabs, as well as other things, are also accessible from the drawer. So this is something that AP and VP Tabbr share. But otherwise, AP tournaments are protected by a passcode. So this means you have to ask your tournament administrator for the passcode in order for you to be able to open your gavel and do your actions as a participant. So declare your conflicts, submit ballots, and submit positions, as well as the veto. So that's pretty much it for Tabbr AP. I think I can turn the floor over now to KL so he can describe how the allocation system of Tabbr works. KL?
Hello, I'll just share my screen. Alright, hi guys. So my name is KL. I'm from LaSalle, and I'll be giving the second part of the lecture on how Tabbr works. So just a couple of things, terms and terminologies, I guess, which can be used in the round if you're unfamiliar with it. So I'll just go through this really quickly, then I'll go into the main bulk of what I'll be discussing. So I think the first is team allocations, and team allocation can mean 3 main things. It can mean the random allocation, a slide allocation, or a fold allocation. I'll be explaining the 3 later on. Then the adjudicator allocation is mostly the same as well. It's how adjudicators are allocated during the round, meaning is it a random allocation, same scoring based on panels or chairs, or also based on conflicts in the round. The third is the venue allocations, which is pretty straightforward, which is like how venues are allocated, mostly in physical tournaments to accommodate, let's say, handicaps, or if people need to be nearer to certain rooms due to like physical disabilities, for example. The fourth is matchups release, which is the matchups being publicly released and how everyone can view it, whether on like a big screen on a physical tournament or like on your mobile device, based on like what they talked about earlier. The fifth is the motion release. So motions are released by the ad score, and on Tabbr for Asians, you can use it as a veto instead of doing it like physically. But on BP, we'll also be releasing it as like one motion, then you guys can see it. The sixth is preparation time. So there's also a timer in Tabbr which starts once the ad score releases the motion. And then you can also use this timer to track how much time you have left for prep. Then the next is debate prediction and results input, which are pretty straightforward. The debate is around what happens, the oral adjudication afterwards. Then the results input is 3 main things. So the first is the teams giving the score to the judge who gave the OA, the judge giving the score to the debaters, being the speaks of the round, and the judge giving the scores to the panelists or trainees if ever there are trainees in that round. All right. So let's move on to the bulk of the discussion. So I'm going to first talk about how teams are ranked in terms of agents, and this also corresponds to somehow why teams appear the way that they do in breaks. So there are three main metrics by which teams are ranked in agents, and the order by which you see the screen is based on its importance. So the first is wins. So that's the most important ranking, and this is how much raw team points you get. So let's say it's a 7-point tournament, like let's say it's a national or something, and the team with the most amount of points ranks over the other. So even if Team A has lower speaks than like all the other teams before it, the fact that it has more wins means that it will be over the other team because purely it has more team wins than other teams. Then the second is speaks, and the second and third one are usually used to break ties within teams because there can be a multitude of teams who get the same points, like a lot of teams with 6 points, or 3 teams with 5 points, etc. And the way to break it then is if you have multiple teams with the same amount of speaks, you want to use with the same amount of raw team points, you want to use speaks to break it out. So here it looks like Team C and Team B have the same amount of team points. The way you break it is by checking who was the larger number of speaks. So since Team C clearly has larger number of speaks, then they rank over Team B. And the same also applies for Team B ranking over Team E and Team B ranking over Team C. And that's important to note because absent speaks being in the equation, it's very hard to note like which team between these four teams should rank over the other, which is why speaks is super important. Now let's get on to the third scenario, which we have two teams which have the same team points and they have the same speaker scores as well, same speaks. The way you break it then is through the margins. So margins usually apply more for agents than in BP, but for agents, how margins work is the amount of speaks that you get from a round, the total speaks that your team has from a round, comparing it with a team that you lost or the team that you beat. So let's say you beat a team in a prelim round, and the team has, let's say, two total speaker scores lower than you. Then that adds like a +2 to your margin, which adds to your margin over here in the last column. And however, if you do lose like a round to like a certain team, and then let's say the margin was like a 3-point difference, and obviously you get like a -3 because you lost the speaks difference was 3 points. So that's important to note because even if you get the same amount of speaks, the way that you won the rounds or the speaks difference within the round also matters because that can also determine if there are close ties like Team F and Team G in this example. So those are just some stuff to look out for in agents. For BP, on the other hand, it is mostly the same, except there's a few complications and other stuff that we have to take into account. So the first two columns and the first two ways for deciding which team ranks over which team is still regularly the same, which is raw amount of team point wins and then speaks. But then instead of going into margins, the next thing we go into is the next thing that we go into is the amount of firsts that you get in the round. So the amount of firsts is important, primarily because this is what determines like how you perform in the round. And generally, debate tournaments look towards teams who get the most amount of firsts as the quote unquote better team. So, for example, in this example between Team A and Team B, they both had 18 points. And even though Team A ranked over Team B in terms of speaks, if Team B had the same amount of speaks, say this was 1,035, Team A would still rank over them because they had more amounts of firsts than them. That's mostly it for BP. The same also applies for seconds. So, for example, here in Team G and Team H, they have tied amounts of wins, tied amount of speaks, tied amount of firsts. The next thing to compare then is the amount of seconds. Usually after the amount of seconds, we usually third and fourth is usually negligible. But if it has to be compared, then it will be compared. But usually we look then to the margins, and the margins are also important but less relevant because there are like 4 teams in the round, so the margins are much smaller than an Asians win or an Asians loss. So obviously, if you have a smaller negative number, that means the loss point is less than a larger negative number, which is why this team, even though they had the same amount of first, second, third, fourth, same amount of wins, same amount of speaks, the way that they broke it was the one with the smaller loss margin was the one who ranked over the other team. But like these cases are very, very rare because it's very rare that like a team. Well, I mean the first two are like the first two cases, which in the same amount of wins and speaks, is quite common. But the moving forward to first, second, third, and fourth having the same amount is quite rare. So we rarely go to the margins and just break it to the amount of first, seconds, etc. But that's mostly it for team ranking in BP. Alright, so this was talked about a while ago. So the margins in Asians is basically speaker points of your team minus the speaker points of your opponent. And this is how it works in this one. So like if you're Gov over here, 264.5 total speaks, 261.5 total speaks and up. Gov clearly won. So the margin is a +3 on government side and a -3 on opposition side. For BP, it is relative. For BP, it's like relatively the same as well. Like here in the round, OG took the win. So, sorry, CO took the win over all the other teams. That's why they have a 0 margin because they didn't gain anything from it, but they didn't lose out anything from it either. So, here, so usually BP, you don't add anything, but so the best case of a BP team, if they don't lose any round in the entire tournament, is that they have a 0, but not like a positive number. And OG, because they lost by 2 speaks towards closing opposition, then they get a minus, then they get a -2. And then, this should be like a -7 instead of a -6. But like opening opposition lost 6 was like 6 speaker points lower than closing opposition, so that's why they got a -6, and it should be like a -7. So this is -7 difference. So you always compare it to the team who won, which in this case is closing opposition, to determine the margin for the other teams which got second, third, or fourth in BP. Alright, so this was the other thing I was talking about a while ago, which is allocating teams. So there are 3 main ways of allocating teams. The first is a random allocation, which only should apply for round 1, because in round 1 you can't determine the approximate strength of teams yet. So you allocate teams based on a random basis. And then for the second one is the slide allocation, which is like for succeeding rounds. I think Thea has a clarification on the slide though, if she wants to say it.
Okay. So the thing about slides is that there are 2 types of slides. So there's the single slide and there's the double slide. So it's used interchangeably, but Tabbr devs especially want to note that the slides are based on the format. So single slide is actually used for Asian parliamentary, which means to say if you have 8 teams in a bracket, you cut the bracket in half, and the top of the top of the first half goes up against the top of the second half. So the second type of the slide is called the double slide, and this is used in British parliamentary, wherein you approximate and you try to balance out the skill gap that exists by balancing or just like distributing teams according to their speaker points as well, given that they're all in the same bracket. So there's only double slide for BP and there's only single slide in AP. They cannot be used interchangeably. So that's the clarification.
Yep, thank you. And the last one is the fold allocation, which only applies during break rounds. I'll be explaining the 2 of these in the succeeding slides. So yeah, for random allocations, it's only used in round 1 when teams are unranked. So this is how random allocation works. So assuming, let's just ignore the points. Let's just ignore this. But technically, how these teams should be is these teams should be like unranked, but and how you allocate them is like purely random based on an algorithm, and like this is just like one example of the teams being ranked, like randomly generated together. But there can be other examples where like they are more mix of the Indians in the first room, etc. So it's not entirely like certain, so you can't really predict anything in the random allocation. It's just purely random. The same also applies for BP. The same type of algorithm used to determine the random generator for teams are also applied for VPS and agents. And it's not like it's very straightforward because you can't really predict anything from it. So there's no, so supposedly there should be no kind of like strength or like putting like certain teams being put together because of the relative strength. It shouldn't happen. But if it does happen, it's purely because of, you know, like the generator put it there based on a random code. All right, so this is what Thea was saying a while ago, which is the slide allocation. So I will explain it using the succeeding slides. So the slide allocation in agents is basically if you have 8 teams and this is their approximate ranking, let's assume they're also ranked in terms of their peaks. Then you cut this in half. So you cut this in half. And then you bring up E to go against A, F against B, G against C, and H against D. So it's like you bring up the bottom half to go against the top half. And the reason why that is so is because we want to give teams on the lower half a chance to go up against teams from a higher bracket, because presumably there are some teams also in the big tournaments which may have, you know, low ranking points or low ranking like speaker points out of circumstance, but not necessarily out of skill level. That's why we're doing this, to be able to balance out and see if it's really true that they do deserve to be there, or maybe they do have a shot of ranking much higher. So that's the reasoning behind it. And then for double sliding BP, it's quite similar in terms of ranking approximately based on their speech level, also based on their team points. So for example, here we have team A, team A, B, C, and E, team D, F, G, and H. It's not so like some people might say like it's quite random, but it really isn't, because we're also ranking them according to their speech level. So for example here, this can be one rule, team A, C, B, and E, because they're all the teams in the 6-point bracket, and then team B could say B. So I think let's say here team B has lower speaks than team E, for example, then they could be ranked along with G, F, and H. So I think some people also refer to this as like power rankings and power slides, because basically you put the top teams together because they're the ones who like are in contention with each other, as opposed to these guys down here who, if you put them up here, might like presumably lose out. But then that doesn't discount the fact that if they do if the 5-point or the 4-point teams do well here in this room, then presumably in a latter round they can also rise up to a stronger room point bracket to fight against the teams up here. Okay, so for full allocation, it's only used for breakdowns, and it basically wants to reward well-performing teams and punishes for poor performing teams. So how it goes in agents is you basically fold the entire thing. So you can still imagine this is cut in half, but instead of putting up E to A, you're going to fold it. So A goes up against H, G goes against B, C goes against F, and D goes against E. So it's like, so imagine it's like a paper, you fold it in half, then the top goes against the bottom, then so forth and so on until the two middle teams go against each other. And then afterwards, after from that, then you fold it again. So presuming that this like the top and the bottom is really folded, you ignore this part, or whoever advances from the matches, there'll only be 4 teams remaining. So then you fold it again based on these 4. So you cut it here. Then A can go against B, B can go against C, or presumably whoever wins between B versus E, or A versus H, or B versus G, or C versus F. So whoever wins there, you're going to cut it up again until basically you only have 2 teams left, and the 2 teams will come from the 1 or 4 room, the 1 and 4 room, and the 2 and 3 room. So presumably the first and second break should not go against each other up until the finals. That's the logic behind it for AP fold. Okay, for BP fold, I will explain it through a different photo. So it's this one. So example, in most idea tournaments, it's a break to the pre-quarterfinals. So how you do the fold is we rank teams like this. So we put them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and so forth and so on. And we make sort of like a snake diagram. So we start from here, going here, and so forth. And the teams debating are the ones in the same room bracket, right? So if, for example, your team rank is number 9, then you're going to go against team ranks 16, 17, and 24. And then the two teams advancing from this room will go up against teams who are ranked 1 and 8. So let's say 16 and 17 advance from this room, then they're going to go up against 1 and 8 in the quarterfinals. And then after the quarterfinals, you're going to do the same fold method. You're going to fold 1 and 4 together. So the semifinals will be room 1 and room 4 combined together, the two teams advancing from each room, and room 2 and room 3 folded together, the two teams advancing from those rooms as well. And the finals is basically the two teams advancing from room 1 and room 4 together, which is the semis room, and room 2 and room 3 together, which is the other semis room. And then you have all the 4 teams for the finals after that. There are other variations of this snake method as well, depending on the break size of your tournament. In Octo finals, for example, you do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 9, 10, etc., etc. So you have 8 rooms, and then you just keep on folding it, and then you just keep on folding it until you get something like this. You only have 4 rooms left, and you dwindle it down to 2 rooms based on 8 semis, and then 1 room for finals. But don't worry, because you don't need to memorize this or anything. It's just something that it's good to keep at the back of your mind if you're a very experienced person already. But Tabbr does this for you automatically. It shows you the bracket when like the breaks are released. You don't need to worry about it. The only complications I can really think of is when like a team pulls out, then obviously the team ranks will then adjust, because let's say team 11, like let's say team 11 pulls out, then all the teams before 11 will get their rank elevated by 1. So 12 becomes 11, 13 becomes 12, etc., etc. And you bring in the 2015 to become the 24th team, something like that. Alright, so yeah, that's mostly it for us. If you have any questions, feel free to message me or Thea on Facebook. We'll be happy to reply to any queries that you have on tabbing. Or you can also contact Tabbr, like the Tabbr page. We'll also try to answer there. Thank you.